Okay, I have 7 o'clock if we are ready. Everybody's ready. If you guys could just mute except for Jill. So, all right, are we ready? Good luck, you guys. Good evening. What's wrong? You're not on. Yeah, I'm not on here for, hold on 1 minute. Good evening. My name is Pat Ludwig. On behalf of the American Association of University Women, Watertown Branch, I would like to welcome you to tonight's Watertown Aldermanic District Candidate Forum. Our moderator for this evening's event is Jill Nadeau. Jill is the producer and fill-in host for the Larry Mueller Show, heard around the state on Wisconsin Public Radio. She formerly worked as the coordinator for Watertown TV and hosted many shows. With that, I introduce tonight's moderator, Jill Nadeau.
Thank you, Pat. Aldermanic Districts 1, 3, 5, 7, and 9 are up for election next month. These are for 2-year terms on the Watertown Common Council. Not all the candidates are with us this evening, but I'd like to welcome those that came to tonight's forum and thank you for taking the time to talk to Watertown voters. Each candidate will have 2 minutes to introduce himself, and then I'll ask the first of 10 questions. They will have 1 minute to answer each. The order that the candidates will answer will alternate. The original order was determined alphabetically by last name. A slide will appear for each question. After I read the question, the name of the candidate to start will be listed. When that happens, that candidate will begin. There will be 30-second and 15-second reminders. And to save time, I will not introduce each speaker. They will respond when their name appears on the screen. After the last questions, candidates will have 2 minutes to make a closing statement. Let's begin with our first introduction.
And then to the next screen. Yeah.
Good evening. I'd like to first start off by thanking everyone involved in this forum and giving us the opportunity to convey our ideas and thoughts on these matters. I am running for District 1 Alderman of Watertown. As a lifelong resident of Watertown, and actually a lifelong resident of District 1, I've grown up here. I've lived here. I've seen things change over the years. And recently, some of the things I've seen change, I didn't agree with, and so I felt I needed to get involved. I've watched buildings on Main Street be torn down that had thriving businesses in them. They were economic strong points in the community. They had employees. They were torn down to build a park on Main Street, which everyone loves parks. I love parks. They're nice to sit on summer days. But to tear down buildings, to build them when we have parks in the city that need repair, they need restoration. That money could have been spent possibly better that way. For instance, Riverside Park is the premier park of the city. We have Riverfest there, softball tournaments are there, volleyball tournaments are there. Yet the Riverside Park that you see today is not the Riverside Park I saw as a child. The creek is dilapidated, the bridges need repair. And yet we keep building more parks throughout the city, which will stretch the street department even thinner in an effort to maintain these parks. The other problem that I see that needs addressing in Watertown is businesses. I think that we need to look at the way we tax, the way we do our fees, the way the organization is set up to have business in this town. It seems like we push businesses out of town rather than bringing them in. And I would like to see that changed in an effort by reducing some of the fees and regulations that we have on our businesses here in town. And I think by doing that, that would bring in more work, and then we could develop the downtown area. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Jim Romline. I'm running for the 9th Aldermanic District. Thank you to the members of the American Association of University Women Foreign Committee Watertown Branch. Your members, Jill Nadeau and Val Wagner, presidents, along with Nancy DeCono, Vicki Coughlin, Barbara Phelps, C.J. O'Neill, and Karen Hobe, along with my contact, Patricia Ludwig, with set up by Watertown TV's Jordan Wichtenberg, have been meeting ever since December to plan the forum. Thank you all. Somehow I'm hearing the Starship Enterprise in here. You know, the world, let me see if I can't kill that audio. Can you mute me for a while and let me kill this audio, please?
Jim, you're still muted.
Mute. Okay.
Okay, you're good now. Continue.
Okay. The word Watertown doesn't exist for an Army brat. You move every 3 years, sometimes more often. After high school in Paris, France, class of 56, and what else? The U.S. Army. Zoom ahead to 58, discharged from the 101st Airborne. Then Lawrence Institute of Technologies to start my EE. In 74, I was in Tehran, Iran, with Page Communications engineers and met Barbara Jakes, a BOAC stewardess. In 76, received the Wisconsin PE, that's the Professional Engineering Certification, started my business, and as a consulting engineer. In 77, Barbara and I, with our first son, Jim Jr., moved up from Waterloo, Indiana to Pleasant Valley Lane in Watertown Township. Lisa, Jeffrey, and Laura, all Wisconsin natives, were born in Watertown and graduated from Watertown High School. In 1982, I enjoyed the flood. Drove my kids out to reach the school bus in the front end loader. In 2009, we moved into the city of Watertown. We love the beautiful adopted hometown, where opportunity runs through it. I'm running now because we have a fantastic chance to develop a strategic municipal advantage that's built on the opportunity that runs through it. I'll talk a little bit more about that when I get into the individual sessions. Thank you.
Hi, everybody. My name is Chris Ritten. I'm currently finishing my first term for District 3 Alderman. I've lived in Watertown for 16 years, married to my beautiful wife, Stephanie, and we have 5 kids, ages 2 through 16. By trade, I'm a professional land surveyor, and I work for a civil engineering company, and we do lots of municipal engineering work all over the state. And with that experience, I can draw off that experience and apply what I see that works well in other communities to work well in Watertown. On my 2 years on the council, I've served as council president for the past year, and I've served on numerous commissions and boards, Park and Rec, Finance Committee, and the RDA are some of the bigger ones. And I'm really excited about serving on the RDA. It's helped revitalize a lot of the downtown businesses. We have a beautiful revolving loan program through the RDA, and the Watertown Town Square is coming to fruition, and we're working on agreements with the developer to develop much needed housing just to the south of the planned town square. So lots of great momentum. I'd like to see that through. I am running unopposed, so I expect to serve another 2 years, and I'm really excited about that. I want to build on this great momentum that we've built up. And it started in past administration before I even started, but we have a good mayor in place and a solid council, and a lot of good things are happening, and I'm excited to see things keep moving forward. Thank you.
Thank you all. Here's our first question. What area in the city operations presents the greatest challenge to Watertown? And what is your strategy to overcome that challenge?
I think the biggest challenge is in the city amenities issue. It's the things that we need to do to fix Watertown. The map that I put up there shows you where we stand as a state. So from a state ranking, Washington is the first, and Wisconsin is the 6th. But when you want to improve industry and businesses and drive businesses to Watertown, you want to fix the things that you're the weakest in, not the things that you're the strongest in. So we're really strong in healthcare. We're low in education. We're fairly strong in economy, fairly strong in infrastructure. We're really poor in opportunities, and we're poor in physical stability. Now, I know our mayor has taken good care of that, but we need to do some work on it. And then the last two we're in good shape on. So what we need to do is to develop a plan to fix those weak elements to make ourselves more inviting to people. Thank you.
What area of city operations presents the greatest challenge? Probably the biggest challenge is working with the funds that are available. And every year we go through a budget process in the fall, and it takes several weeks. And toward the end of the year, we pass the budget, and we try our best to limit the amount that property taxes grow. We try to keep that less than the rate of inflation. And for the last 2 years, I think we've come close to doing that. And when you're doing that, you look for efficiencies to be had. And one thing we're currently doing now is a slight restructuring of the operational umbrella. We're creating a Department of Public Works, which is going to be an umbrella over the street department and zoning and planning and other areas. And it'll help everyone work together, talk together, play nice, and that will streamline processes and create efficiencies in order to save money, which is, of course, our greatest challenge, staying within our budgets. Thank you.
In my opinion, the greatest challenge facing Watertown is jobs. When I grew up here, when I was little, there were factories, there were storefronts, and there were shops. And I drive through Watertown now, depending on what neighborhood I go into, and some of them look like ghost towns. I mean, Main Street itself, if you look, looks like a ghost town with the empty buildings. And I personally have friends that have owned businesses here in Watertown. I know people that have businesses, live in Watertown, but have businesses in other towns. Why did they not open here in Watertown? Regulations, the fees drive them insane. I think if you can streamline that, if you can figure out and look at ways to reduce the fees and the regulations on businesses, more of those businesses will come. But from what I understand, talking to friends and relatives that are business owners, it's not a business friendly environment. That's my take on it, and that's, in my opinion, the greatest challenge is to get jobs back in here and get the economy moving.
Question number 2. How would you improve the city's infrastructure, and what items would you prioritize?
Infrastructure. Lots of people talk about infrastructure and talk about, hey, my street's really bad. When's it going to get repaired? And it's a really easy thing to complain about. And believe it or not, these things are planned for. For example, every street in the city has a grade 1 through 10, and the 1 through 3 streets take priority, and those get planned to be reconstructed every year. The Main Street Bridge, right by the downtown there, that is being planned to be replaced, but it's going to happen in about anywhere from 4 to 6 years, and that's just the nature of the beast. It's a really easy thing to complain about, but we have a really solid engineering department that is on top of this, believe it or not, and things. We have 5-year plans for everything, and things get prioritized and reprioritized all the time, and sometimes there's emergencies where we have to respond quickly, and we're able to do that because we have a solid street department staff.
Yeah, I would agree with Chris on that. I think infrastructure, that term gets thrown around an awful lot, where everybody likes to use the word shovel ready, or like he said, fix the roads. If I had to prioritize the infrastructure, I would look at a department. The street department would be a priority. I would think that it seems like they're being stretched thinner and thinner every year. They have more and more responsibilities that they have to take care of. And I think that should be looked at, is to get that a little more lax, that they have more room to maneuver, whether that be more employees or more equipment. That would have to be looked at and studied a little more.
Infrastructure, it's probably wise to remind ourselves that infrastructure is a project in a municipality that takes a long time to complete, especially an organization like ours, where you're dealing with one department with 9 individual districts. We are, however, in a great place to move this process forward with the 12-person downtown Main Street Construction Task Force. If they do a good job in their efforts, they'll promote the effects, and we'll set the municipality in a way to start providing a framework to focus the staff resources that they need. Here's a list of the members that are on the 4th. Emily, Rutan, Salas, Lampy, Smith, Holloway, Byer, Steve Board, a representative from the DOT, Andy Grinwall, Lori Hoffman, and the mayor's appointed youth committee. Now, we're in the 4th Industrial Revolution. The 4th Industrial Revolution has changed the way we do everything. And when you're doing a committee plan, a project, you need to think about what you're planning for. So we're not planning for yesterday. We don't have horse and buggies on Main Street. What are we going to have in 20 to 30 years? Because we're planning for our kids. We're not planning for us. We're planning for our kids. What do we need to bring into place? So that's where we are, and that's what we need to do, is to think about where are we going to be when we get this project done, and then plan for the requirements of that time frame. Thank you.
Question number 3. Watertown's town square is set to be finished in the fall of 2022. What additional development would you support for downtown?
Well, not being a fan of the town square development in and of itself, that I would have to rely on my constituents. I would have to talk to people in my community, in my area, and see what they wanted to do, what they thought would be best. I don't agree with it. I didn't agree with it, which is one of the main reasons why I'm running. Not to stop it, because you can't put the genie back in the bottle, but you can certainly stop other genies from coming out. It just seems like it was built on hopes and dreams, and until we have pen to paper as far as a development in that process, it's still a hope and a dream. I guess that's where I would stand on that. I would want to see pen to paper on contracts before I would want to put any more city finances or policies in place that would develop that farther.
The biggest thing that we need for downtown, as has been mentioned before, is we need to have an inviting area. What are we missing here in Watertown? So I put up a list of the co-location sites that are in Wisconsin. So this is the communication sites that have data centers. If you'll notice that there's none of them in the middle of the state where we are. Okay, they're all around the state. We're in a excellent, our asset, our biggest asset is that we're right in the middle, an hour's drive from everywhere. And communications is our biggest asset right now in the fourth industrial revolution. We need to have an internet exchange point and a co-location site here to serve the businesses in the area. Think about what happened when the interchange freeway got put in and how it changed our business. Then think about what would happen if we had a connection to the internet. I'll talk a little bit more about this later on, but think about what would happen if we could have that in Watertown. It would increase the desirability for people that have disposable income, which is what we need in Watertown. Thank you.
I'm actually really excited about the Watertown Square project because I've been working with the RDA for the last year, and the whole plan has been in the works, I think, since 2014 when Mayor David formed the Redevelopment Authority, the RDA. The businesses that were displaced, the Chalet, the Daily Times and stuff, property tax revenue was $24,000 for the properties on the 100 block. Building this town square is going to serve as a catalyst for other developments in the area and a revitalization of downtown Main Street. And currently we are in negotiations with an apartment developer, and it's really exciting because Watertown is in need of housing, and if this development goes through, that $24,000 of taxable revenue, we're going to make 10 times that each year once that development is in place. So that's really exciting.
In the near future, the council will be making decisions regarding the Watertown Fire Department. What do you see as the biggest needs for our growing community when it comes to these essential services?
Who's up?
You are, Jim.
Okay, I'm sorry. The Watertown Fire Department is a critical organization for us. As we know, the river divides Watertown into two parts. Right now, when we have high water, and we've had two floods so far that we've lost, in one of them, the 2008 flood, we lost the city building. When we have a flood, the fire department has to station equipment on the other side of the river in what used to be the city complex. The problem with that is, if we had a disaster in downtown, and that's where the big disasters will happen, is where the businesses are close together, we've split our forces. We now have our forces in two locations. So even if we build a new fire station on the other side of the river, if we can't get across the river in a fire and we have a fire downtown, we're in a worse position because now that other equipment will have to drive to a bridge and then drive back into town. So what we really need to do to solve this problem is a comprehensive solution, which probably will mean raising the deck on that Main Street bridge so that we can drive across it in those floods. Thank you.
The fire department's housed in a building that's about 50 years old, and it's outlived its capacity. Watertown has grown. The fire department has grown with vehicles and personnel, and it will continue to grow because the outlying areas we serve, town of Lebanon, town of Emmett, town of Watertown, they don't have the large fire departments, or they have a volunteer force, but those have been shrinking over the years and may go extinct. Who knows? But as the larger force in the area, we contract with those forces, so we anticipate having to do more calls and grow our fire department. And we've talked about the need to build a new building 3, 4, 5 years in the future, and we've begun talking with the financial folks to help us plan for that. And right now, we're in a good position 3, 4, 5 years down the road to do something like this. And when we do it, we're going to plan for not what we need now, but what we'll need for 10, 20, 30 years, 40 years beyond that. Thank you.
I would think that the Watertown Fire Department is most likely just, again, like the street department, stretched thin. It's a small department for a very large community, and it's getting larger and getting farther out. If you look at where the fire department is compared to some of the newer neighborhoods that are out beyond the Westpac area, it's a smaller fire department. And it seems like we have an issue at times with firefighter retention, where they're here for a few years and then they move on, and then we keep seeming to start over with new firefighters. I think those would be the two biggest things, along with possibly a new fire station or retrofitting a old vacant building that's here in town, which there are several that might work in that situation, that could be retrofitted and used for that situation.
On to question 5. What is the role of city government in addressing housing needs in Watertown?
You know, housing.
Hey,
is
Jim,
really-
hold on. My turn. Sorry, Jim. Housing needs. I've spoke to this before. We do have housing needs. The folks in Maranatha, they have nurses and stuff that sometimes stay overnight because with the COVID epidemic, they've had to put in more time, and they've reached out to city leaders and say, hey, we'd love a place to be able to move here and live here and stay here. And prices of housing have gone through the roof, and you talk to local realtors, inventory is kind of hard because that demand's so high. Luckily, we have adjusted some of our fees and rates to draw developers in to start to develop residential subdivisions, and we've seen those taken off finally in the last couple of years. So it's good to see that growth. And the apartment development that I mentioned south of the town square, if that comes to fruition, that's I forget how many units, but that would be a great asset. Bring more people in, and it's a win-win for everyone. So, role of state government is to make things attractive for those developers to come in here and do their thing and bring people in.
Yeah, I would agree with Chris on that 100%. The role of city government in addressing housing issues is none. I mean, the government isn't supposed to provide housing. What we are supposed to provide is an environment where developers want to come here. And developers want to come here and build apartment buildings and houses and residential neighborhoods if there is income here. If there is work here and businesses here. You don't want to be a community of commuters. You want people to live here, but also work here. But as far as, like I said, as far as the city government addressing housing, that's all we can do is make it inviting for developers.
Housing is really the horns of a dilemma. If you build more subsidized housing, which is always needed here in Watertown because we have such a high density rate of people that don't have a lot of disposable income, if you build subsidized housing, you attract more people that need subsidized housing. If you instead build market-based housing, and you don't have the other assets needed to support market-based housing, or to encourage them to come here, you'll end up with empty market-based housing, which will revert to subsidized housing. The real challenge is getting the horse in front of the cart. We need to develop a workable plan to increase our opportunities and steadily increase the ratio of people with disposable income to a level that'll support a viable and prospective market-based tenant community. And we don't have that right now, and unfortunately, subsidized housing is supported by the federal government, and market-based housing generally is not, unless you keep or unless you add some component of subsidized housing in it. And so developers are always looking for that extra bit to build, which is supported by federal government, and that subsidized housing extra bonus in there. As you've seen in the housing that we have developed along the river. Thank you.
If you could invite a group of community leaders to a roundtable discussion, what topic would you like to discuss and why?
Fees and regulations on businesses. I have looked at the flow charts. I've looked at the fee schedules. And it's for me, it's hard to make heads or tails of it. I would love a streamlined operation on that. And that would be the discussion. I would like to sit down with the leaders at a roundtable and get a no nonsense guide to if a individual wants to open, for instance, a pawn shop. What does he have to do? What does that individual have to follow? What are the regulations? What are the fees? Straightforward, to the point, so that they know where they stand when they come into town to open something. Again, whether it's a pawn shop or it's a restaurant or a tavern or a kid's toy store. I would love to see that in a discussion.
I could second that, but add something to it. We're in competition for citizens, for businesses, for everything with all of our neighbors that are in Jefferson and Dodge County. And the first thing that we need to do is to test all of those solutions for the same solution that we offer in Watertown. So if we're having a street permit, what do they street permits go for? If they're having another thing, what is that other thing going for? Because right now we're pricing ourselves out of the market and we don't know why. What's the reason for all these high fees? Now, part of the problem has been in the past that every one of our city departments has been operating in its own little cocoon and not paying attention. Now, Emily's got her hand on that pretty well. So it used to be that we had a wagon and all of the people that wanted to help would hitch their horses to the wagon, but they'd all be pulling in a different direction. So the wagon doesn't move because nobody's pulling in a common direction. Right now we're in a position where Emily's got all the horses going in one direction. So if we give them some direction, I'm sure that we'll get the wagon moving. Thank you.
A group of community leaders. That's what the role of government is supposed to do. We're supposed to listen to the folks that voted for us and put us in power. And Jim's right. The mayor's done a good job, and she does reach out. She has had forums where people could come to her and bring up topics they want to discuss, and I'm all for that. And it's my job. I take calls from constituents all the time with suggestions or complaints or what they'd like to see. And every so often getting a group of community leaders together to talk about the things they'd like to see improved. That the more ideas that are out there that come to the government representatives, the better. I mean, I'd like to think the group of aldermen and mayor that's in there now is pretty smart. We've got some good ideas, but I mean, we're a city of 24,000 people, and there's a heck of a lot more good ideas out there. So yeah, the more ideas that we hear, the more better ones there are, and we can act on those.
As an alderperson, you'll receive communications from constituents regarding upcoming decisions, operational issues, and decisions that have been made that they may or may not support. How will you respond when addressing their concerns?
Is it my turn?
Yes.
Okay, thank you, Jill. You know, I was faced with that problem when we wanted to change a dead-end street into a through street. And the people that lived on the dead-end street didn't want that street extended to a through street. So you're sitting in a problem in a situation where, how do you do that? Well, what I ended up having to do is to walk down and talk to every one of the members on that street, share with them the issues, see if there was a way that we couldn't solve it by maybe having a street sign on one end of it that said local traffic only, but that got shot down by the police department. But I tried to resolve it with all of the community, with all the people that lived on the street. And I think when we have a problem, you've got to go out and talk to the people that the problem affects, explain the problem to them so that they understand it, so they can see it from both sides. You see it from theirs and they see it from yours. And then if you do have to make a decision that smacks with your constituents, you have to tell them the reason why. We are supposed to be knowledgeable about the things that come in front of us, and we're supposed to be able to do the research to come up with the right answers. And then you have to tough it up and talk to the people and tell them why you did it. Thank you.
This is actually one of the things I enjoy most about being an alderman for the last 2 years is actually taking calls from residents with their concerns and their ideas, and sometimes their complaints too. And I always do my best to be responsive, first of all, to just let them know, hey, I got your email or got your voicemail or whatever, and let them know I'm going to find an answer for you or a solution, and I'll get back to you shortly. That's happened, at least a dozen times or so. And most of the time, it's just a question that I can find an answer for, or sometimes they have a suggestion that, I'll let the street department know, and it's something they can implement and make things better. And once in a while, there'll be something that, hey, I don't like what's happening here. Can you vote against it? And that's when you got to look at, what serves the greater good? Is it good for you and your small neighborhood, or is it something good for the whole community? And when it's like that, you really got to educate yourself so you can present that case to the folks that are most impacted by that, so they hopefully understand how and why you're voting the way you are.
When responding and addressing constituents, I think that emails and phone calls are great. It's a wonderful medium, but I think if anything we've learned in the last few years is that social media is probably the way that the future is going to go. As far as it would be Twitter or Facebook, it seems it's a faster response time. There will be keyboard warriors out there that are faceless in the masses, but as far as getting immediate feedback, the social media platform I think would be good. The mayor does a wonderful job with her weekly roundups. I watch them pretty much every week, and they're informative, they're insightful, they're great. But there's no forum that I've noticed where you can communicate directly other than emails or phone calls. So if you could expand the social media aspect of it, I think that would be a wonderful addition.
And question number 8. What do you consider Watertown's greatest asset? And what would you do to encourage full use of it as a community?
I think for me, it's an easy one. The greatest asset is obviously the river that goes through town. And I'm fortunate to live in a spot where I'm just a 10-minute walk from the river, and I take my kids to Riverside Park, and we fish off the floating piers all the time. We got 1, 2, 3, at least 4, maybe 5 floating piers that are good for fishing. Jim, you actually helped put in that micro park over off of Concord Street there. Another one, it's great. The Park and Rec Department, last year we started a kayak rental program, which has been really successful. And this year we actually applied for some grant money, which we expect to receive, and we'll purchase some paddle boards for rental too. We have put out some takeouts for a couple different spots in the river for boating, kayaks. There's great fishing. I fish by each dam. I fish in the middle of the river by Riverside Park. I see people buzzing up and down in their pontoon boats on the river all the time. To me, the river is the greatest asset, and the Park and Rec Department is doing a fantastic job with the kayak rental program, and the street department's doing a great job keeping it clean. The Rock River Rescue, they have the cart barrels there to pull out the junk fish and stock it with game fish. It should be a big draw from a larger area.
I think Watertown's greatest asset is Watertown. It's the community, it's the people. Every year, other than last year, since I was 13 years old, one of the biggest activities we have is Riverfest. And I think that when I was growing up, we had the 4th of July and Riverfest, and 4th of July has unfortunately diminished over the years to a few of the orange boards and the fireworks. I think as a community, we could utilize that as the asset. Maybe a few smaller festivals, more softball tournaments or volleyball tournaments, more community-based activities in the parks that we do have, such as Brant Court Park or Riverside Park, to really grow the community. Neighborhood block parties used to be a huge thing when I was a kid throughout the summer, and I barely see those anymore. So it seems like the community itself, the identity is slipping away from the small town feel that we had as we grew and just stretched out. I would work to encourage that to come back.
Yeah, I think our biggest asset is what the real estate people love. It's location, location, location. We're one of the few cities that have 4 railroad tracks. We're one of the few cities that has a coal or a gas generation plant by us. We're one of the few cities that has connections to all of the power grids around the state. We're one of the cities that people can fly in and go to spend a vacation. So think of this as an ideal spot for a tourism-centered economy, because people travel and they enjoy doing that. A tourism-centered economy where Watertown is a great place to start your visit of Wisconsin. So bring your dog, we'll put them up in kennels, spend a couple days here, go off and see the rest of Wisconsin and come back. Okay, the reason that I really like that is because it's minimal effort for us to get that operation online. It brings in really good dollars, and it helps set the stage for people to want to come back and bring their businesses here. So think of it as a tourism center. Now, the river is great, but everybody in Dodge and Jefferson County has a river, so we're not attracting anybody from those areas. Thank you.
What would you do to make Watertown more welcoming to new residents and businesses?
Fees. I don't think I can stress that enough. We have a fee for everything in town. I mean, if I want to replace my water heater, there's a fee. If I need to put a fence up, there's a fee. There's a permit. If you need to put a shed up, which is not even a permanent structure, it's temporary, that's a fee. It goes on and on and on. And that goes as far as businesses also. It just, from what I've heard and what I've talked to people, the fees push them away. They push businesses out. They just don't want to do it. They'll go to Waterloo. They'll go to Johnson's Creek, Beaver Dam. From the way I understand it and what I've been told, they have a much easier fee structure when moving.
Yeah, fees are a tough thing, but the issue with fees is if we don't have income from residential taxes or businesses, the city's got to make up that money from someplace. So that was introduced some time ago, and the solution for that is we can't kill the fees yet because we'll just create a bigger hole in our financial pocket. What we need to do is to increase the number of people that live in Watertown with disposable income so that we can support them and support it with other taxes and other businesses and other revenues. So it's a systemic thing. We got to fix that. And the way to do that is to create an environment which, if you jump into the fourth industrial revolution with me and you look ahead, what do people want? They don't want to go, they don't want to do shopping in supermarkets and stuff like that. They don't want to shop in big stores. Most everything is online now. What they're missing is the personal interaction that you have when you get a group of people together. So we need places downtown where people can congregate and have a good time. And we can't do that right now. You can't, there's only a few places that you can go to dinner in Watertown. There's not a place that you can dance. I mean, there's all kinds of things that we need that other cities have that are relatively easy to get online. Thank you.
I feel the city's well on its way to making itself more welcoming to new residents and new businesses. A lot of the things, and it's not something that can happen overnight, but in my 2 years on the council, I've seen a lot of positive movement, and I'm going to go back to the town square, and when that thing is up and running, it's going to serve as a catalyst. There's other spots in the city near downtown, like the old Firehouse Lanes, the old Johnsonville plant next to Breslow's, even the parking lot on First Street there behind the old Two Rivers bicycle shop there. Those are all areas developers are actually looking at, and they're just waiting to see what Watertown is going to do, and if they can pull off this stunt of I won't call it a stunt, pull off this town square. And once we do, that T-wall development of the apartments is going to happen, and then the next domino is going to fall, and the next domino is going to fall. And in the meantime, we should be working our tails off marketing to anyone and everyone who will listen all over the state and other states as well.
And our final question, what is your vision for Watertown as a community in the next 5 years? As an alderperson, how do you plan to work towards that vision?
The next 5 years is really a growing opportunity. We can't do a lot of municipal construction in a 5-year window. It takes us, we'll take a look at the park. How long has it taken for that? How long has it taken to build that library addition? And it's still not done. To do structural things like that takes a really long time. Think about where we're going to be in the next 30 years or 35 years, and then start planning for that. Once you get that momentum going, and once people see where you're going to be, we'll get some positive momentum. It's hard to move a boulder, but if you just pry it a little bit with a lot of people pushing in the same way, that first inch is the piece that's the hardest to do. Once you get that first inch, things go a little bit better. And we've gotten that first inch. In the last several years, Chris has been on the council and done a hell of a good job, and Emily's been doing really good and some hard work to get us aligned so that we can actually pull all in the same direction once we have some focus. And let's see what happens in the next couple. If we get a vision that people can understand and can see the merits of the vision, I'm sure they'll support it. But the problem is getting that vision and getting people to support it. Thank you. In the next 5 years, we talked about the fire station is going to be needed. One of my personal pet projects would be, and I think Joel mentioned this before, is Riverside Park. I live within a 5-10 minute walk from it, and I would love to see those buildings in that band shell updated. They're very old and they need work. And this has been brought up and talked about, and it is in a 5-year plan to start addressing that stuff. Hopefully in the next year or two, we can start the planning stages, and maybe by 5 years, that'll come to fruition.
as far as the rest of the city in 5 years, you've already seen a lot of good, positive things happen with our downtown and beautification. Lots of facade grants have been dealt either by the RDA or the Main Street program or other civic groups. And you see a lot of the downtown building facades really dressed up, really looking pretty. And believe it or not, a lot of those vacancies are actually starting to disappear. If you really look hard, you'll notice. Thanks.
I think in the next 5 years, it's nice to have the downtown pretty, and the park, I'm sure, will look nice, much like Boardwalk did when they first built it. Not so much anymore. But there's outreaching neighborhoods that have blights that need to be addressed also. So moving forward in the next 5 years, as the city council, and not just Alderman, but as city council and mayor, we need to look to fill those blights. There's empty factories that have been empty for years. There's the Vulcan, the old Vulcan plant. Watertown Metals is empty. Down by Diversity, it's empty. The building was torn down, but it's just a vacant lot. I think those things need to be addressed in the next 5 years to encourage not just small mom and pop shops on Main Street, but to try to get businesses, factories of some part in industry back in town as well.
Each candidate now has 2 minutes to make a closing statement.
All right, I'd like to thank the American League of University Women for putting on this forum. It's a really valuable service to the community. I'm one of the lucky ones where I am running unopposed, and maybe I can see that as a good thing, that I've been doing a good job in my first 2-year term, and I really do enjoy doing what I'm doing. I enjoy having a say in what goes on and what happens in the city that I chose to raise my family in, and I'm going to be here while I got kids age 2 to age 16, and I'd love to grow them all up and shove them off to college. So I'll be here for a while, and I'm really excited about the positive things that have happened in the last 2 years in the council, and I'm looking forward to seeing them through. Thanks.
I would like to thank you again for this opportunity to forum. This is a great experience. Living here my whole life, I have no intention of leaving. I'm in for the long haul. I want to see what Watertown can do. I hope to be a part of that. If elected, I'll work very hard in an effort to grow the city and bring in businesses, hopefully bring industry back. I believe I am the only candidate that is running opposed. I believe everyone else is unopposed, but good for you guys. But for me, I believe that the best face of this city, the downtown area, is full storefronts, people walking up and down Main Street, in and out shopping, just community based, and enjoying what this city really has to offer, whether it be the parks, storefronts, community activities such as Riverfest, and going from there. Thank you again very much.
I know that Joel, Chris, and I very much appreciate this chance to present our views on matters of importance and for consideration as we plan and implement our trip for our kids to the future of Watertown. COVID has pushed us headlong into the technologies of the Fourth Industrial Revolution. I encourage everybody to look it up. Simply type 4IR in your search bar. You know, I can remember many trips where I heard, "Dad, what's it going to be like when we get there?" Or, "Mommy, will I need my bathing suit?" Understanding the basics of the fourth IR will open up a better understanding of what's coming and how to plan ahead. Wikipedia has a great section on this paradigm shift that has changed how we do everything now, and we're just getting started into it. And for the last time, Thanks to members of the American Association of University Women Forum Committee Watertown Branch. You know, I'm going to whisper that in my dog Rue's ear and see if there's any magic in those words. Now, seriously, ladies, thank you very much. A special thanks to Jill, who's been most instrumental in the development of Watertown TV, and to Patricia for pulling all the cats together. And finally, on St. Patrick's Day, I hope there's still room and some Guinness left at Lions Pub. Thank you.
Thank you to our candidates for taking the time to be with us and letting the voters get to know you better. Election Day is April 6th. For more information, go to myvote.wi.gov or contact the city clerk's office. Thank you for being a more informed voter, and good evening.